when everyone was still stuck at the first level, grinding the same beginner skills again and again. Dante was already moving years ahead, because his talent made every single use count as 10 battle-perfect repetitions. A skill others needed months to improve could evolve for him in seconds. A basic attack could become an endgame technique. A simple movement skill could turn into something completely broken. While everyone else was still trying to master the basics, Dante was already stacking abilities no beginner should ever possess. And with every new skill he learned, the gap became impossible to close. Even the strongest guild leaders, the players everyone once believed were untouchable, would eventually realize one terrifying thing. They weren't strong enough to stop him anymore. The server announcement echoed across the realm. Malachor the Voidborn was dead. Vanguard Guild had cleared the Ethelgard realm. The game world was shutting down in 24 hours. Dante collapsed to his knees. His broadsword hit the cracked floor. He was completely exhausted. His armor was in pieces. His health sat at just 2%. In front of him, the giant body of Malachor turned into digital ash. Dante wiped the sweat from his face. 3 brutal months were finally over. In the Zenith Protocol, dying in the game meant your brain got fried in real life. Game over meant real death. Suddenly, a golden sphere emerged from the ashes. Supreme Artifact looted. Aegis Blueprint. This item could bypass the system reset and carry over into the next world. Dante grabbed the scroll. Abilities reset every cycle, but Supreme Artifact stayed. Whoever held this would rule the next world. Footsteps sounded from behind. Silas said, "Man, you look like absolute garbage." Dante laughed without turning around. It was Silas, his Vice Guild master and trusted brother. Dante stood up and turned around. Silas walked closer, his silver armor completely clean. Behind him stood 6 core guild members in absolute silence. "Is that the Supreme Drop?" Silas asked. "The Aegis Blueprint," Dante said. "This is our ticket to the next world." "Our ticket," Silas replied with a cold smile. "Right, about that." Before Dante could react, a sharp pain exploded in his chest. An assassin dagger pierced straight through his heart. Critical hit, HP 0.1%. Dante coughed up blood and fell hard. The blueprint rolled out of his hand. Silas stood over him, holding the bloody dagger. The 6 guildmates just watched with cold eyes. "Are you kidding me?" Dante spat. Silas picked up the blueprint. "Nothing personal, Dante," Silas said. "You're just too heavy to carry into the next cycle." "I carried you," Dante gritted out. Silas stepped back. "Yeah, and it made me look like a sidekick," Silas said. "Besides, sponsors pay better for a solo act." "Just close your eyes. Brain death kicks in soon." Dante looked at his guildmates. They ignored him and checked their menus, looking bored. Rage exploded inside Dante. He opened his inventory, sir, and selected a banned item, Unstable Void Core. It dealt 50,000 fixed damage to everyone nearby. Dante coughed, a crazy grin spreading across his face. "Hey, Silas," Dante said. Silas narrowed his eyes. A dark purple sphere appeared in Dante's hand, vibrating violently. Silas turned pale. "Are you insane?" Silas shouted. "If I go down, you die too," Dante shouted and crushed the sphere. Silas screamed and scrambled backward. A guildmate activated an ether scroll, trapping Silas inside an invulnerable golden barrier. The void core detonated. Purple energy instantly vaporized the 6 guildmates. It slammed into Silas's golden shield, but the barrier held. Silas survived. He laughed wildly inside his dome. Then, the purple energy devoured Dante. His digital body was torn apart. HP, 0, status, deceased. Darkness consumed his vision. His real brain was about to die. Suddenly, Dante sat up. His head hit the curved glass of his VR capsule. He gasped violently for air. He pushed the lid open and fell onto the cold floor. His heart was pounding. "I'm alive," he whispered. He checked his chest. No wound, no blood. He was back in his dingy studio apartment in the real world. Year 2290. So, why was he still breathing? Suddenly, a burning pain flared in his chest. Dante reached into his shirt and pulled out a crystal pendant. It was a gift from his missing girlfriend, Lillian, who vanished 2 years ago. The crystal glowed purple and shattered into dust. A blue system screen appeared in front of his eyes. Fatal neural shock averted. Item, Tear of the Forgotten. Grade, Mythic. Effect. Negates one true death by absorbing neural overload. Dante stared at the dust in his hand. Lillian had given him a mythic item before the game even existed. Then, the betrayal returned to his mind. Silas's cold smile, the dagger in his chest. Dante stood up and washed his face with cold water. He didn't rage, he didn't scream. Silas thought he was dead. Silas thought he had won. Dante looked in the mirror, his eyes turning cold. He needed resources. And a new idea and answers about Lillian. Silas wanted to be the king of the new world? Fine. Dante was going to burn his empire to the ground. The server announcement flashed across every screen. Phase 2 was starting. The next game world, Overture, would launch in 24 hours. Humanity had to clear every core zone and slay the world boss. Or Viridia would be completely eradicated. Dante sat inside a booth at a small diner, completely unfazed. He ordered a massive breakfast. Eggs, bacon, pancakes, and black coffee. Panicking didn't boost stats. It just got you killed faster. Suddenly, the diner's TV broadcast glitched, was cutting to a live press conference. Silas stood at the podium in a tailored black suit, with a fake bandage on his cheek. He wiped tears from his eyes in front of hundreds of cameras. "Today is a day of victory," Silas said, "but also great tragedy. Vanguard is dead." Gasps filled the room. Silas continued his act, claiming Dante had died in his arms while protecting him from the final boss. "To honor my fallen brother, I am officially rebranding our guild," Silas said. "From this day forward, we are Vanguard's legacy." The media went wild, and Silas declared that he would use the supreme artifact to lead humanity to victory in Overture. Dante calmly ate his eggs, watching the screen with cold, mechanical focus. Silas's PR move was genius. By pretending Dante died a hero, he had stolen Dante's fame, public support, and guild leadership. And Silas still had the Aegis blueprint. Even though everyone started at level 1 in a new world, that supreme blueprint bypassed the reset. Silas could build an endgame fortress in the first week and dominate the entire game. "Let him build it," Dante whispered, taking a sip of black coffee. "It just gives me a bigger target." Dante reached into his pocket and pulled out the gray ash from the Tear of the Forgotten. The pendant had saved him from real-world brain death, but Lillian had given it to him 2 years ago, a full year before the Zenith Protocol even started. How did she have a game system artifact before the game even existed? Lore fragments from the dungeons mention the Cradle of Overture, the origin point of the system's architects. If Lillian had possessed a mythic item back then, she wasn't just missing, she was connected to the core of the system. She had left him that pendant as a lifeline. She was definitely inside Overture. Dante finished his food and tossed a 20-credit chip onto the sticky table. He had 24 hours before the server launch. He had 2 goals now: find Lillian and completely destroy Silas's new empire. He wasn't going to just kill Silas. He was going to steal every boss kill, and take every world-first reward, and expose him to the entire planet. "Where are you going? The world is ending," a panicked customer shouted. Dante opened the glass door. "The world isn't ending," Dante said. "It's just resetting." He stepped into the cold wind of the street. He had no guild, no supreme artifact. He was starting from absolute zero. And for the first time in months, Dante smiled. The countdown clock hit 0. The VR capsule disappeared in a blinding flash of white light. Dante landed on solid ground. The smell of pine needles, smoke, and sweat filled the air. The character creation screen appeared. Dante typed his old name, Vanguard. Error. Designation Vanguard is already registered. Dante scoffed. Silas had ordered a guild member to steal his name the exact second the servers opened. It was petty, but effective. "Fine," Dante muttered, typing a new name. Dan. Designation Dan confirmed. He selected the warrior class, simple, brutal, and reliant on physical reflexes. Suddenly, the system scanner glitched, flashing a dangerous red. Alert. Foreign energetic signature detected. Mythic tier anomaly. The system detected energy from the Tear of the Forgotten. Its code had merged with Dante's soul matrix when it saved his life. The system tried to purge the anomaly, but failed. Purge failed, integrating anomaly into user's base code. Welcome to Outpost 404. The white void shattered. Dante spawned in a chaotic village square, surrounded by massive wooden walls. Thousands of players were spawning, screaming, crying, and panicking. Dante ignored the crowd and walked straight toward the talent draw monolith. Every player received one random talent upon entering a new world. Dante placed his hand on the floating crystal. The crystal vibrated violently, turning from blinding gold to a pitch-black void. The air crackled with electricity. System error, anomaly integration triggered. Talent drawn, 10,000x skill proficiency multiplier. Grade, unlisted. Description: every skill execution registers as 10,000 flawless uses. Dante stared at the floating text, his heart skipping a beat. Skills had 5 tiers: Novice, Adept, Master, Grandmaster, and Zenith. Reaching Zenith normally required tens of millions of uses, a grind that took years. This talent broke the game. One swing of his sword would register as 10,000 swings. He could max out any skill in seconds. Dante pulled his hand back, ignoring the confused players around him. He opened his inventory and equipped his beginner weapon, a rusty iron sword. His skill menu showed 2 basic skills: heavy slash and dash. "Hey buddy, you done?" a player behind him barked. "Yeah, I'm done," Dante replied, turning away. Out in the world, Silas was using his stolen blueprint to build an army under Vanguard's legacy. Silas had resources and thousands of players, but Dante had the multiplier. He didn't need a party. He didn't need a guild. Dante tightened his grip on the rusty sword and walked through the wooden gates of Outpost 404, heading straight into the dark forest. The beginner hunting grounds outside Outpost 404 were complete chaos. Thousands of level 1 players in cloth shirts were fighting over crag boars. Massive wild pigs covered in stone armor. 10 players swarmed every boar that spawned, wildly swinging wooden clubs and rusty swords. Dante didn't waste his time in the crowded, shallow areas. He walked deeper into the forest, where the trees grew thicker and the light began to fade. After 10 minutes, the noise disappeared completely. Dante stepped into a quiet clearing where 3 car-sized crag boars were rooting through the dirt. Their eyes glowed red with aggression. The closest boar let out a violent squeal and charged straight at him, shaking the ground beneath its weight. Dante didn't flinch. He tightened his grip on his rusty iron sword and activated his only attack skill. Heavy slash. Skill executed. Heavy slash. Talent activated. 10,000x multiplier, registering 10,000 flawless executions. Time seemed to freeze, as 10,000 swings worth of muscle memory flooded Dante's brain. He instantly understood the exact angle, wrist snap, and weight distribution needed for the perfect strike. Heavy slash has reached zenith tier. Skill evolution triggered. Heavy slash evolved into abyssal cleave. Dante swung his rusty blade through the air, 5 feet away from the charging boar. A massive crescent of pitch-black energy erupted from the sword, tearing through the air. The black shockwave instantly vaporized the first boar. This expanded to 20 feet wide and obliterated the other 2 behind it. It carved a 10-foot deep trench through the ground, snapping 4 oak trees in half before finally fading away. Targets eliminated. Crag boar, level 2, X3. Level up, level up, level up. Dante stared at the smoking crater. The rusty sword in his hand was glowing cherry red from the friction and looked ready to snap. A dangerous smile spread across his face. Abyssal Cleave, Zenith. Deals 5,000% physical damage and ignores 50% defense. Cooldown, 5 seconds. "Let's test the other one," Dante muttered. He activated Dash. Skill executed, Dash. Dash evolved into Blink Step. Dante's body blurred. He instantly vanished and reappeared 50 feet across the clearing beside a snapped tree. Blink Step, Zenith. Instantly warp within 50 feet. Grants 0.5's invulnerability. Cooldown, 2 seconds. Dante laughed sharply. He was only level 4 with a rusty sword, but he already possessed endgame abilities. For the next 20 minutes, Dante terrorized the forest. He used Blink Step to close the distance, then Abyssal Cleave to obliterate entire spawn groups with a single swing. By the time he reached level 7, his rusty sword finally shattered. He equipped a level 5 bronze broadsword he had looted from the boars. Suddenly, Dante heard organized footsteps approaching. He slipped behind a boulder and peeked around the edge. 30 yards away, a group of 13 heavily armed players marched in tactical formation. Leading them were 2 men, a bulky man carrying a tower shield and a rat-faced rogue twirling daggers. Thorn and Vargas, Silas's top lieutenants, the same men who had betrayed Dante in the boss room. Dante's eyes turned ice cold. He activated Blink Step, silently warping into the thick branches of an oak tree directly above them. He crouched in the shadows, looking down at the group below. It was time to see what Silas had sent his dogs to do. Dante sat silently on the tree branch, watching Vargas and Thorn walk directly beneath him. They had no idea the man they murdered hours ago was sitting right above their heads. Vargas complained about the heat and the hunt, Gnad scowling as his daggers flashed in the dim forest light. Silas had sent them to secure the Iron Fang Alpha, an Iron Tier world boss that dropped a guaranteed silver weapon. Thorn laughed loudly and slapped his chest armor. Embedded in the center was a pulsing crimson gem, the Titan's blood gem. Dante recognized it immediately. He had personally looted that gem in Ethelgard months ago. Silas had stripped Dante's body, then handed his stolen high-tier gems to his lieutenants to dominate Overture. Vargas showed off a purple ring on his finger, the Mana Leech ring, another piece of Dante's stolen gear. Vanguard really knew how to hoard the good stuff, Vargas said. It's a shame he had to catch a dagger. He was too soft, Thorn scoffed. Silas knows how this game works. You step on everyone else to climb to the top. Up in the tree, Dante remained cold and calm. Raging out now was pointless. Dying this early meant a free revive at the outpost, Dinian without losing any gear. He needed to burn their resources, and humiliate them when losing actually hurt. Suddenly, the air grew heavy with the smell of wet fur and rust. A gray portal ripped open in the clearing. A truck-sized wolf stepped through. Its fur was made of jagged iron spikes, and its eyes burned yellow. World Boss Spawn, Iron Fang Alpha, Level 10, HP 25,000. Fighting a Level 10 boss at Level 3 was suicide. But Thorn and Vargas were relying on stolen legacy gear. Thorn activated a taunt skill, blocking the wolf's massive charge. The Titan's blood gem glowed bright red, instantly healing his lost health and boosting his defense. "It works!" Thorn cheered. "The boss can't even dent me. DPS, hit it now!" Vargas and 12 players unleashed their attacks, relentlessly striking despite dealing single-digit damage. Vargas used the Mana Leech ring to keep his stamina full, while slashing at the wolf's hind legs. Dante watched the sloppy fight. Thorn didn't block properly. He simply absorbed every hit, relying completely on the gem's automatic healing. Vargas left his back completely exposed. 10 minutes passed. 3 syndicate members were crushed and sent back to the spawn point. The boss was battered, its health dropping to critical levels. Iron Fang Alpha, HP 4,000, 25,000. "Keep pushing," Vargas panted, wiping sweat from his face. Thorn was running out of mana to trigger the gem's healing. He drank a mana potion, but his knees buckled under the boss's attacks. "I can't hold it much longer," Thorn gritted his teeth. "Finish it!" Vargas leaped into the air toward the wolf's head, but the Iron Fang Alpha entered its enrage phase. The wolf snapped its jaws upward, catching Vargas midair and slamming him into the dirt. Vargas's health plummeted into the red. The remaining players panicked and backed away. "Get it off me!" Vargas shrieked. Thorn hesitated, raising his shield to protect only himself. Up in the tree, Dante drew his bronze broadsword. The syndicate had burned through their potions, exhausted their mana, and brought the boss down to its final sliver of health. It was time. Dante locked his eyes on the wolf's neck and activated his skill. Blink Step, server-wide announcement, the Iron Tier world boss. Iron Fang Alpha has been slain. First boss, kill secured by player Dan. Dante landed on his feet as the massive wolf burst into blue and silver pixels. His Zenith Tier abyssal cleave had severed the beast's neck in a single strike, cutting straight through its hide and bones. A glowing pile of loot appeared on the grass, beside a terrified Vargas and a wide-eyed Thorn. You just stole our boss kill," Thorn stammered. "It looked like you were struggling," Dante replied calmly. "Thought I'd lend a hand." Vargas scrambled to his feet, pointing a dagger at Dante. "Do you know who we are?" Vargas shouted. "We are Vanguard's legacy. That loot belongs to Silas." "Silas isn't here," Dante said coldly. "And honestly, neither are you." "Kill him!" Thorn roared. 10 syndicate grunts charged at Dante, wielding clubs and swords. Dante didn't even use a skill. He sidestepped the first attacker and smashed the pommel of his sword into the player's face, then kicked him into 2 others. After surviving 3 months in Ethelgard, Dante's reflexes were far beyond theirs. A mage began casting a fireball from the back. Dante kicked an iron dagger off the ground, caught it, and threw it straight through the mage's throat. The spell was cancelled instantly, and the mage dropped dead. Thorn bellowed and charged with his tower shield, relying on the Titan's blood gem to heal him. Dante waited until the shield was only inches away, then activated Blink Step. He warped directly behind Thorn and sliced through the unarmored joints behind his knees. The tank crashed into the mud. Dante planted his boot against Thorn's neck. "The Titan's blood gem doesn't protect your joints," Dante said coldly. He drove his blade through Thorn's shoulder plates, bit straight into his heart. Target eliminated. Player Thorn. Thorn's body dissolved into light. The remaining grunts panicked, and fled into the woods. Dante turned toward Vargas, who was backing away in sheer terror. "Who the hell are you?" Vargas stammered. "How are you moving like that?" Dante took a step forward. "I asked you guys to watch my back," Dante said. "You shoved a dagger in it instead." Vargas froze. He recognized Dante's customized fighting stance. "No," Vargas whispered, turning pale. "That's impossible. You're dead." "I got better," Dante replied. Vargas tried to escape using a dash skill, but Dante activated Blink Step and cut him off. He slammed Vargas into the dirt and pinned his arm. "Silas made us do it," Vargas shrieked. "Don't kill me. If I die, my free revive is gone." "Everyone has a choice, Vargas," Dante said. Raising his broadsword, he drove the blade into Vargas's chest, draining his HP to 0. Vargas was forced to respawn at Outpost 404, without his safety net. Dante stood up and checked the dropped loot. He picked up the blood-red serrated sword, his old secondary weapon, the Crimson Edge. He also recovered the Monolith ring and the Titan's blood gem from Thorn's death spot. "Thanks for holding on to my stuff, boys," Dante muttered. He grabbed the Iron Tier boss loot chest and headed back toward Outpost 404. Silas now knew the name Dan was out there. Stealing world firsts. The war had officially begun. Outpost 404 was buzzing like a kicked hornet nest. Dante walked through the heavy wooden gates, with the Crimson Edge sheathed across his back. He blended into the crowd of low-level players. Everyone was talking about the server-wide announcement. A player named Dan had taken down an Iron Tier world boss at level 10, while everyone else was still stuck around level 4. Dante ignored the noise and headed straight for the merchant sector to resupply. His basic health potions were gone, and his physical stamina was running low. The stalls were packed with players waving copper coins. Dante walked up to a bald NPC vendor selling health potions. "I need a basic health potion," Dante said, tapping the wooden counter. "That will be 3 copper coins," the merchant replied. Dante pulled out a single shiny silver coin and worth 100 coppers and slapped it onto the counter. "Keep it coming," Dante said. The merchant's artificial smile faltered. He checked his lockbox, then looked back apologetically. "I do not have 97 copper coins for change," the merchant said. "That's fine," Dante replied smoothly. "Give me the potion and 95 copper. Keep the other 2 as a tip." The merchant froze, his eyes darting back and forth. "I cannot do that," the NPC said, his voice turning robotic. "Accepting a higher value without exact change violates the economic parameters of the Zenith Protocol. Please provide exact change." "I'm literally telling you to keep the change," Dante said. "It's a tip." "Tips are not an authorized transaction category," the merchant insisted, pushing the silver coin back. "Exact change only?" Dante crossed his arms, staring the NPC down. He knew the Zenith Protocol operated on strict logical rules to prevent exploits, but rigid systems were easy to break. "I am providing valid currency for a basic survival item," Dante said loudly. "Are you refusing the sale because of your own inventory mismanagement?" The NPC's eye twitched. "I am requesting exact change to maintain economic equilibrium." "I don't have exact change," Dante shot back, "and I'm not leaving without my potion. Process the transaction." The merchant's programming locked into a massive paradox. It had to sell the item, but completing the trade without exact change violated its core coding. "Error," the merchant muttered, his eyes flashing with green code. Transaction cannot be completed. Imbalance detected. Suddenly, a mechanical chime echoed from the sky. System alert, economic logic. Paradox detected in Sector 404. Resolving imbalance to prevent localized vendor crash. A golden light struck the counter. The silver coin vanished, replaced by a basic health potion, and a carved crystal vial filled with glowing green liquid. The merchant sighed in relief. The transaction is complete. Thank you for your patronage, Dante smirked. He grabbed the items and slipped into a quiet alley. He opened his inventory and inspected the crystal vial. Item appraised, high-grade vitality elixir. Tier gold. Effect. Permanently increases base HP by 5,000. Grants permanent 1% max HP regeneration every 10 seconds. Dante's jaw dropped. At level 10, his base health was only 800. This elixir gave him the health pool of a level 40 tank. The system had panicked while fixing the logic crash, and compensated him with a late-game gold tier item. I need to argue with retail workers more often, Dante muttered. He downed the elixir in one shot. Mint and raw electricity flooded his body as his health bar expanded violently. Max HP increased by 5,000. Passive regeneration acquired. Dante felt untouchable. He already had Zenith tier damage. And now he had the health pool to back it up. He pulled the Iron tier boss chest from his inventory and dropped it onto the dirt in the alley. It was time to see what the Iron Fang Alpha had dropped. The Iron tier chest dissolved into blue light, leaving 3 items in the dirt alleyway. Dante equipped the Iron Fang grips, that silver tier metal gauntlets that boosted strength and defense. He also stashed the pouch of 50 silver coins. The third item was a tarnished silver locket with a broken chain. The item appraised, tarnished locket, unique lore item. Description, bears the crest of the Old Kingdom. Return it to someone who remembers the old days. Lore items could unlock hidden quests and secret dungeons that normal players would never find. Dante knew exactly who to talk to. He walked straight to the central platform, bypassing the massive line of players, and held out the locket to the outpost elder. I found this in the woods, Dante said. The blank look in the NPC's glowing eyes disappeared, replaced by an intensely human expression. He took the locket with a trembling hand. The crest of the Silver Vanguard, he whispered. The corruption is spreading. Hidden quest triggered, the Whispering Chasm, Part 1. Objective, investigate the Whispering Chasm. Recommended level, 20+. The elder handed Dante a leather-bound skill book. If you are to brave the chasm, you will need to cleanse the corruption with the elements, the elder said. Skill learned, Ember Strike, Novice. It was only a basic fire skill, but Dante cared about the multiplier. He walked to the training yard outside the eastern gate, where players were practicing on wooden dummies. Dante drew the crimson edge, took a deep breath, and activated Ember Strike. Skill executed, Ember Strike. As talent activated, 10,000x multiplier, registering 10,000 flawless executions. 10,000 instances of elemental flame physics flooded his brain, teaching him the exact dynamics of thermal expansion and combustion. Ember Strike reached Zenith tier. Skill evolution triggered. Ember Strike evolved into Wrath of the Firebird. Dante swung his sword at a dummy 10 feet away. A white-hot pillar of flame shrieked from the blade, expanding into a colossal phoenix with a 40-foot wingspan. The projection slammed into the dummy, completely vaporizing the iron-reinforced wood into fine ash. It continued forward, blasting a 20-foot hole through the outpost's reinforced defense wall. The entire training yard fell dead silent. A player casting a tiny fireball dropped to his knees in terror. Dante checked the new skill description. Wrath of the Firebird, Zenith. Deals 1,000% fire damage in a 50-foot cone. Possesses a 5% chance to inflict ash, instant death regardless of HP. Cooldown, 15 seconds. An attack with a 5% instant death chance. Hey, what the hell did you do? An NPC guard shouted, running toward the smoking hole in the wall. Just practicing, Dante called back, sheathing his sword. He didn't wait around. He turned and walked out through the gate. He had massive health, Zenith tier skills, and a new target. It was time to head to the Whispering Chasm. Dante walked toward the main gates of Outpost 404, his boots crunching against the hard dirt. Outside the safe zone boundary, more than 100 players stood in a wide crescent formation. Every one of them wore matching black and gold Vanguard's legacy armbands. Front and center stood Thorn, He had already used his free game-wide revive, and was now back in basic linen clothes. His heavy iron armor was gone. So was the Titan's blood gem. "You actually have the nerve to show your face," Thorn spat, just stepping forward with a wooden club. "Silas gave the order. We camp you here until you delete your character." "You brought 100 level 3s to camp a level 10, Dante said flatly. "Silas always was terrible at math." "Numbers win, Dan," Thorn sneered. "You step 1 foot outside that safe zone, and we chain stun you into the dirt." "It's over," Dante sighed, and stepped forward. He crossed the invisible boundary separating the safe zone from the open PvP area. "Light 'em up," Thorn roared. 50 archers drew their bows, while 20 mages began chanting. A massive barrage of arrows and elemental magic flew toward Dante. Dante didn't blink. He swept his right hand across the air. Skill executed. Wrath of the Firebird. The air erupted into a blinding wall of primordial flame, instantly vaporizing every incoming arrow and spell. The flames rapidly expanded, forming a colossal phoenix with a 40-foot wingspan. Its light illuminated the entire forest. "Burn," Dante said. The Firebird swept through the Vanguard's legacy formation. 4-digit damage numbers flooded the air. Critical hit, 3,000. More than 60 players were instantly deleted from the server, their avatars bursting into clouds of blue pixels before anyone could even scream. Thorn barely escaped, diving to the side and scrambling backward in sheer horror. The remaining 40 Syndicate members froze, staring at the blackened, smoking trench. "Impossible," Thorn whispered, trembling. "That's a hacked skill." Dante walked forward, stepping over the scorched earth. "Numbers don't win," Dante said, looking down at him. "Power wins." Dante slowly drew the crimson edge, raising the blood-red longsword for everyone to see. "Listen up," Dante shouted into the dead silence. "Thorn and Vargas have already used their free game-wide revives. If they die again, it means permanent real-world brain death." Thorn went pale. "Shut up." "I'm placing a public bounty," Dante continued, ignoring him. "Whoever brings me proof of the permanent death of Thorn or Vargas gets this silver-grade crimson edge." The silence shattered. The surviving Syndicate members slowly turned toward Thorn, drawing their weapons. "Guys, come on," Thorn stammered, holding up his hands. "Silas will pay you." "Silas isn't here," a Syndicate mage muttered, pulling an iron dagger. Dante turned his back on the mob and walked into the deep woods. Behind him, Thorn's desperate screams echoed into the night. Regional chat, Apex Hunter. "Bro, did you guys see that? Dan just offered a silver sword for Thorn's head." Regional chat, Iron Mage. "Vanguard's legacy is tearing itself apart. I just saw members chasing Vargas." Dante swiped the regional chat window away. Thorn and Vargas were effectively neutralized. By logging out to avoid permanent death, they were trapped in their VR capsules, unable to level up or gather resources or help Silas. Dante moved through the dead, twisted trees, following the coordinates given by the outpost elder. A thick gray fog clung to the ground, soon as a system alert appeared. A zone discovered, the Whispering Chasm. Warning, continuous exposure will result in passive HP drain. 3 humanoid figures materialized from the gray mist. Their bodies were made of oily black shadows, and each one carried a jagged shadow blade. Monster spawn, Shadow Stalker. Level 18, HP 3000. They moved fast, blinking through the fog. Dante didn't draw his weapon yet. He opened his inventory, pulled out a novice tier skill book he had looted from a grunt, and tapped it. Skill learned, Guard, Novice. A Shadow Stalker suddenly materialized above him, bringing its shadow blade down in a 2-handed strike aimed at his skull. Dante drew the crimson edge, held it horizontally, and activated Guard. Skill executed, Guard. Talent activated, 10 Bulwarks multiplier, registering 10 flawless executions. 10,000 instances of perfect blocks. Parries, Ishquan kinetic energy redirections flooded his mind. Guard reached Zenith tier. Skill evolution triggered. Guard evolved into Aegis deflection. A golden hexagonal shield flared above Dante's blade. The Shadow Stalker's weapon slammed into it with a loud clang. Dante took 0 damage. His stamina didn't move. Instead, the shield pulsed violently, reflecting 500% of the kinetic energy back at the monster. The Shadow Stalker was instantly torn apart, shattering into pixels before it even hit the ground. Aegis Deflection, Zenith, completely negates 100% of incoming physical and magical damage, reflects 500% of negated damage back to attacker, execution window, 0.2s, cooldown, 1 second. Dante smiled. A 0.2 second parry window was impossibly tight for a normal player, but for him, it was effortless. 2 more Shadow Stalkers blinked to his left and right, attacking in unison. Dante spun and activated Aegis Deflection twice. Clang! Clang! 2 golden shockwaves exploded, instantly obliterating both monsters with their own attack power. For the next hour, Dante descended deeper into the chasm. He didn't even use offensive skills. He simply walked forward, parrying every attack, done and letting the monsters destroy themselves against his shield. By the time the ravine opened into a massive cavern lined with eroded statues, Dante had reached level 14. In the center of the arena lay a creature that made Dante stop dead in his tracks, a chimera. It had the body of a lion, a dragon wings, and a viper tail. Its entire body glitched violently with raw void energy. World anomaly detected. Phantom Chimera Emperor. Tier, Titan. Level 0, Cursed State. HP, 10,000, 10,000. A Titan tier monster, the highest classification outside the endgame. Void chains suppressed its life force, but its base attack power was still terrifying. The Chimera's glowing purple eyes snapped open. Without making a sound, it crossed the 50-yard arena in a fraction of a second. A massive dragon-scaled paw slammed down toward Dante's head, moving fast enough to shatter bedrock. Dante didn't run. He raised the crimson edge and smiled. The massive paw of the Phantom Chimera Emperor slammed directly into Dante's golden hexagonal shield. The collision blasted the fog out of the cavern, sending a massive shockwave across the arena. Dante's boots sank 2 inches into the stone, but his arms held firm. Aegis Deflection caught the strike perfectly. The golden shield pulsed, reflecting 500% of the attack's kinetic energy straight back into the beast. Soon, the Chimera crashed into the cavern wall, losing a massive chunk of its health instantly. "You hit hard for a level 0, Dante muttered. The beast recovered. Realizing brute force wouldn't work, it whipped its viper tail forward, spraying corrosive venom across the ground. Dante activated Blink Step, teleporting to the left. But the Chimera predicted his movement. Its dragon wings flared, launching a localized tornado of razor-sharp wind blades. Clang, clang, clang. Dante triggered Aegis Deflection 3 times in a single second. The reflected wind blades sliced deep into the beast's wings and chest. The Chimera shrieked as its HP dropped into the critical red zone. Now driven into a corner. The Chimera reared up. The air dropped below freezing as a sphere of concentrated dark matter gathered at its chest. It was charging a Titan tier ultimate designed to wipe out an entire 40-man raid group. A 10-foot wide beam of dark matter blasted across the arena at the speed of light. Time slowed to a crawl in Dante's vision. 0.3 seconds, 0.2 seconds. Dante raised the crimson edge. Skill executed, Aegis Deflection. The dark matter beam slammed into the golden shield. The pressure was astronomical, making Dante's health bar flicker, but the Zenith tier skill held firm. The shield snapped back. A concentrated beam of golden light, carrying 500% of the apocalyptic attack's power, seeped straight back at the Titan. 50,000, overkill. The golden beam completely vaporized the Phantom Chimera Emperor, shattering its void chains and reducing the beast to glittering dust. Dante stood tall, exhaling heavily. Perfect parry. System prompts instantly flooded his vision. Target eliminated. Phantom Chimera Emperor, cursed. Level up, level up, level up, level up, level up. His level surged from 14 straight to 19. Ding. Server-wide announcement, the Titan tier anomaly. Phantom Chimera Emperor has been slain. Boss kill secured by player, Dan. Rewarding 5,000 global fame, plus 10 to all base attributes, and an exclusive Titan loot chest. Cosmic trumpets echoed across the entire Overture server. Just minutes earlier, Silas had spent a fortune broadcasting a server-wide message, bragging about Vanguard's legacy securing a silver tier boss. Dante's Titan tier announcement completely buried Silas's moment of glory. Dante glanced at the global chat, moving too fast to read, and smirked. "Enjoy the spotlight, Silas," Dante said, walking toward the glowing Titan loot chest. "Because I just stole it." The Grand Hall of Vanguard's legacy was supposed to be a place of celebration. Silas stood at the head of a polished oak table, wearing silver-grade armor. The Aegis blueprint rested on a velvet cushion beneath him. Just minutes earlier, Silas had spent 50,000 credits broadcasting his guild's first kill of a silver-tier dungeon boss, declaring Vanguard's legacy the rulers of the New World. Then the trumpet sounded. Silas's announcement was violently overwritten across the sky, and by a new message, Dan had slain the Titan-tier Phantom Chimera Emperor. Silas slammed his fist into the oak table, cracking it straight down the middle. "The regional chats are going insane," an officer stammered nervously. "Forums are crashing. Rival nations are already hunting for information on this Dan." "He doesn't belong to us," Silas said, his voice deadly quiet. "It gets worse," another officer said, swallowing hard. "Thorn and Vargas Force quit their capsules. This Dan put a silver sword bounty on their heads. And their own squads turned on them." Silas hurled his iron wine goblet across the room, shattering it against the fireplace. "Find him," Silas snarled, his PR persona melting into pure rage. "Search every inch of the map. I want him camped until his capsule fries his brain." The officer scrambled out of the hall. Silas stared at the Aegis blueprint, his chest heaving. "Dan," Silas hissed, "you're going to regret logging in. Deep underground." Dante stared at the massive pile of glowing loot left behind by the Chimera. He ignored the standard materials and picked up two glowing items. The first was a dark alloy ring, this with miniature galaxies swirling inside its black gemstone. Item appraised, Band of the Void Walker, Ish-tier Titan. Stats, plus 50. All attributes, 100 luck, 100 intuition, 100 charisma. Passives, infinite inventory capacity, no weight limits. 30% movement speed, leaves no physical or tracking footprints. Dante whistled. Standard players were restricted to 50 inventory slots, constantly forcing them to leave valuable loot behind. Infinite storage broke the economy. Dante slid the ring onto his finger, instantly feeling the boost. His intuition sharpened his senses, allowing him to hear water dripping hundreds of yards away. His 50-slot inventory interface transformed into an endless black void. With a wave of his hand, Dante vacuumed every coin, scale, and bone fragment into the ring. The entire floor was cleared in 2 seconds. He then picked up the second item, his heavy gold breastplate etched with glowing runes. Item appraised, Sun-Forged Cuirass. Tier Gold. Stats, plus 2,100 physical defense, plus 100 magical defense. Passives, debuff immunity, poison bleed slow. Unyielding, halves damage from single attacks over 50% max HP. Dante equipped it. The armor digitized around his body, forming a lightweight golden chest piece. He checked his character sheet. Level 19, HP 600, Phys, Def 2000, Mag, Def 1050. He was now a walking fortress, with natural disaster level damage. Dante turned to leave, but something glowing in the dust caught his attention, right where the Chimera had died. Something the system hadn't registered as a normal drop. It was a circular crest made of dark glass, surrounded by an eclipse-like ring of silver light. No system prompt appeared. His new intuition stat screamed at him as he wrapped his fingers around it. The moment his hand touched the dark glass, the entire cavern violently shuddered. The world simply melted. There was no loading screen, so no flash of light. The stone walls of the Whispering Chasm liquefied like wax under a blowtorch, revealing a sprawling, apocalyptic mountain range beneath a swirling vortex of blood-red clouds and pitch-black lightning. Dante dropped into a defensive stance on the corrupted obsidian ground, one hand gripping the hilt of the crimson edge, while the other clutched the glass crest. The system alarm shrieked across his vision. "Critical alert! You have breached an uncharted death zone, Sanctum of the Eclipse. Warning, communication disabled. Revive protocols disabled. True death is active." Dante turned, searching for the exit, but the ravine was gone. If he died here, his VR capsule would trigger fatal neural overload instantly. The Tear of the Forgotten was gone. He had no safety net. Looming ahead, carved into the largest obsidian mountain, stood a monolithic temple built for massive entities. Each step was 10 feet tall, and its enormous bronze doors had been blown completely off their hinges. The suffocating cosmic pressure tried to force Dante to his knees, but the sun-forged cuirass glowed warmly, pushing back against the oppressive aura, with no way back. Dante used blink step in short bursts to scale the massive staircase. 20 minutes later, he reached the main landing. Dante stepped through the shattered bronze doors, entering a shadowy, impossibly large temple. Floating braziers burning with cold silver flames provided the only light. At the end of the aisle, a colossal corpse lay sprawled across the obsidian floor. Remains identified, Eclipse Sentinel. To tier, super divine. Level, status, deceased. Dante stopped 10 feet away, staring at the 40-foot knight, covered in glowing celestial armor. It hadn't been worn down during some long raid. A single, perfectly clean hole had been punched straight through its chest plate. Its core had been completely vaporized in an instant. The corpse was slowly dissolving into golden motes of light. A super divine entity was practically a god in the Zenith Protocol. Something entire nations wouldn't dare challenge for years, and something had killed it instantly. Suddenly, an earth-shattering roar filled the inner chambers. Pure territorial rage shook the temple, the sound wave physically forcing Dante backward. Whatever had killed the sentinel was still inside. Dante didn't retreat. He drew the Crimson Edge and activated the stealth passive of his Titan ring. Silently, he slipped into the shadows and moved toward the massive circular antechamber ahead. Dante peeked around the edge of the stone archway and held his breath. The inner sanctum was a battlefield. Dominating the center was the obsidian dreadworm, a calamity tier world ender with 6 wings, a crown of horns, and a chest burning with molten purple heat. Hovering in the air, dodging its massive claws, was a girl in a tattered white dress. She looked no older than 16, but her eyes burned with silver light. She was completely outmatched. The dreadworm's claw pressure sent her crashing into a stone pillar, forcing her to cough up glowing silver blood. The dragon reared its head, charging a massive breath attack inside the closed chamber. Her silver eyes frantically searched the room, until they locked onto Dante hiding behind the archway. "You!" she screamed, her voice echoing through the sanctum. "Help me!" Dante didn't move. Fighting a calamity tier dragon at level 19 was guaranteed death. The girl reached into her tattered dress and hurled a golden crystal scroll straight at Dante's feet. Item identified, Ether Scroll. Description, grants absolute invulnerability for 60 seconds. "Hold its attention," she yelled. "Give me 60 seconds to charge the singularity, or we both die." The dreadworm unleashed a wave of purple fire. Dante didn't hesitate. He stomped on the scroll, crushing the golden crystal. Absolute invulnerability applied. Duration, 60 seconds. A shimmering golden dome surrounded Dante, just as the molten fire washed over him. 59 seconds. Dante activated. Blink step, teleporting directly in front of the dragon's right eye. "Hey, ugly," Dante called out, activating Abyssal Cleave. The spatial fracture slammed into the dragon's eye, but its calamity tier defense was so high that the attack shattered like glass. It barely dealt any damage, but it enraged the dragon. 54 seconds. Dante dropped to the floor and activated Wrath of the Firebird. A massive phoenix erupted forward, slamming into the dragon's chest. The dreadworm roared, bringing a massive foot down to crush Dante. Dante didn't move. The foot slammed into the golden dome, shaking the entire temple, but the barrier didn't even flicker. 45 seconds. The dragon went feral. It battered the dome with longsword-sized claws and massive tail sweeps. Chunks of the ceiling crashed down around them. Dante stood calmly inside the chaos, throwing out occasional attacks to keep the dragon's attention. 30 seconds. Across the chamber, the girl floated near the ceiling. A blinding point of light expanded between her palms, like a miniature star. 10 seconds. The dragon unleashed another stream of purple fire, directly onto Dante's barrier. 3 seconds. 2 seconds. "Clear!" The girl's voice cut through the roar. Dante activated Blink Step. Warping into the far corner of the chamber, just as his invulnerability expired, the girl separated her hands. A thin thread of reality-tearing white light shot forward. The beam struck the dragon's neck instantly. A damaged string of 9s glitched across the system interface. Billions of damage in a single frame. The dreadworm's head was cleanly bisected. Its colossal body crashed to the floor. The entire chamber fell dead silent. Dante sat up and looked toward the ceiling. The girl's silver eyes faded. Her body went limp, and she fell from the air like a stone. The colossal headless corpse of the dreadworm slammed into the temple floor, shaking the entire sanctum. The girl in the tattered white dress was plummeting toward the ground. She was completely unconscious, her silver eyes fading to a milky gray. Some as digital fragments peeled away from her skin. The system was recognizing her as a spent asset and deleting her code. Dante didn't hesitate. He activated Blink Step, catching her midair 50 feet above the ground. He twisted his body, letting the sun-forged cuirass absorb the brunt of the fall. His health dropped by 10%. Up close, her digital structure was breaking down fast. Her hands were becoming transparent. Her eyes fluttered open. "Guardian," she whispered weakly. System alert. NPC Erebus fragment, life force exhausted. Initiating deletion in 10 seconds. Dante opened his inventory, but potions couldn't heal deleting NPC code. 7 seconds. Warning, target is not a registered player entity. Healing denied. Her legs completely dissolved into glowing light. 1 second. Notice. Unprecedented cosmic weight detected in user Dan. Anomaly Tear of the Forgotten interface active. Would you like to initiate an emergency soulbind? Warning, binding a dying entity will convert them into a master-servant construct. Dante slammed his hand through the yes button. A blinding pillar of blue light erupted from his chest, freezing the countdown at 0.1 seconds. Her dissolving body lifted into the air, the energy condensed, shrinking her human form into a softball-sized sphere of starlight. The light faded, revealing her new form, a miniature glowing silver fox with 3 tails. The tiny creature blinked its oversized eyes, then affectionately nuzzled Dante's cheek. A binding complete, pet acquired, aura, grade 7, designation, Doom Harbinger. Dante opened the pet stat sheet. Pet, aura, level, 0, HP, 500. He scrolled down to her innate abilities. Skill 1, Resurgence Wave, passive active, restores 50% of maximum HP of the target, ignores all anti-heal debuffs. Cooldown, 10 seconds. Skill 2, Harbinger's Grace, passive, grants a 20-foot aura of permanent immunity to all crowd control and status effects. Stun, silence, bleed, poison, stat drain. Skill 3, Resurgence, active. If Master's HP reaches 0, instantly resurrects Master at 100% HP and mana with 3 seconds of invulnerability. Cooldown, 24 hours. Dante closed the interface, staring at the tiny wisp resting on his shoulder. She was the ultimate support companion. Percentage-based healing, complete crowd control immunity, and a free resurrection every 24 hours. "You and me, Aura," Dante said, offering her a finger. The wisp nuzzled it, letting out a soft digital chime. "We're going to cause so many problems." Dante walked over to the bisected dreadworm and activated the band of the Voidwalker. The entire Calamity Dragon was instantly vacuumed into his infinite spatial ring. With the boss dead, the uncharted death zone warning lifted. A swirling blue portal opened at the back of the chamber, leading back to Outpost 404. Dante stepped through the portal, with Aura hovering beside him. He was ready to return to the surface. The Vanguard's Legacy Guild Hall in Outpost 404, that was a masterpiece of early game architecture. Silas had funneled millions of credits into the game, building a 3-story manor in the premium sector, a physical manifestation of his ego. Silas paced through the war room, his silver boots thudding against the floor. His lieutenant stood in dead silence. "You're telling me 500 players swept the Whispering Chasm, and nobody found him?" Silas snapped at the holographic map. "The boss arena was completely empty, Guildmaster," a ranger stammered. "Stripped to the bedrock. He killed a Titan tier anomaly." Silas gritted his teeth. "He has to be resting." "Sir, it's noon," an officer interrupted, pointing toward the clock. 12 hours after launch, the Zenith Protocol unlocked the global leaderboards, the ultimate measure of power, in determining sponsorships, fame, and the economy. Silas had carefully planned his entire strategy to dominate them. A celestial gong echoed across the server. System event. The global leaderboards are now active. Silas pulled up the rankings, displaying them for the entire room. "Let's see how much of a fluke this guy really is." He opened the player level rankings first. Global level rankings. Rank 1, Dan, level 19. Rank 2, Ryujin, level 16. Rank 3, Gilded, Silas, level 15. Silas stared at the glowing number 1 spot. A level 19 player, on the first day, without a guild, was mathematically impossible. Fine, Silas spat, switching to the pet rankings. Global pet rankings. Rank 1, Aura, Doom Harbinger. Grade 7, Owner, Dan. Rank 2, Iron Fang Cub. Grade 2, Owner, Ryu Jin. Grade 7, an officer whispered in horror. The system scaling doesn't even list stats for Grade 7. Silas turned red and swiped to the final tab, Equipment Rankings. He held the Supreme Tier Aegis Blueprint, the item he had betrayed his best friend to obtain. Global Equipment Rankings. Rank 1, Terror of the Forgotten, Soulbound Anomaly. Grade, Mythic, Owner, Dan. Rank 2, Aegis Blueprint. Grade, Supreme, Owner, Gilded. Rank 3, Band of the Void, Walker. Grade, Titan, Owner, Dan. Silas stopped breathing. The Aegis Blueprint was number 2. Terror of the Forgotten, Silas whispered, his voice hollow. He remembered the broken crystal pendant Dante had worn for 2 years. He's alive, Silas whispered. Sir? An officer asked cautiously. Who's alive? Silas slammed both hands onto the map table, his composure finally shattering. It's Vanguard, Silas roared. Dan is Vanguard. He survived the capsule overload. The officers exchanged terrified glances. If Vanguard was alive, their entire PR narrative was a lie, and the guild would be blacklisted. I'm issuing a blank check, Silas screamed, grabbing an officer by the collar. Hire every assassin in the Sakura Nation. Find Dan, corner him, and make sure he dies permanently. Silas shoved the officer away, paranoia flooding his eyes. He opened a private chat with Malric, the head of the Syndicate's real-world enforcer division. Malric, Silas typed furiously. Dan is Vanguard. Mobilize the heavy squads in-game and trace his neural signature. Find his physical location on Viridia. We end this before he talks. The portal dropped Dante into a secluded alley, behind the merchant district of Outpost 404. He immediately hid his floating nameplate. After the global leaderboards update, walking around with a giant Dan above his head would cause a riot. Aura materialized beside him, her 3 silver tails swishing happily. Dante decided to test a theory. The 10,000x multiplier allowed him to use Zenith tier skills, but the physical recoil rapidly drained his stamina and health. He removed his gauntlets, and punched the brick wall with full force. His knuckles shattered, and his HP dropped by 300 points. Aura immediately chimed, releasing a silver pulse. Resurgence wave applied. 3,050 HP restored. The shattered bones snapped back into place instantly. His HP returned to maximum, and his stamina was fully replenished. Dante flexed his healed hand, a dangerous smile spreading across his face. Aura could completely reset his physical condition every 10 seconds. He was virtually immortal, and he could spam Zenith tier skills without worrying about fatigue or recoil. Dante dismissed Aura back into the pet space, then blended into the heavy foot traffic of the merchant district. He needed to offload his trash loot. Excuse me, a smooth, quiet voice came from directly behind him. Dante turned. A woman in sleek crimson leather armor stood there, holding a pair of sharp daggers. Player ID, Scarlet Fox. Lyra, Dante said. He recognized her instantly. She was the leader of Crimson Lotus, a ruthless, highly coordinated all-female guild he had clashed with back in Ethelgard. Lyra inspected his Sunforged cuirass, her eyes narrowing. Considering you know my real name, and considering the cosmic weight radiating from that chess piece, I assume you're the ghost everyone is screaming about. Dan, I presume? Dante remained silent for a moment. What do you want, Lyra? Straight to business, Lyra smiled. I like that. You're the most valuable free agent in Overture. I'm offering you an exclusive contract with Crimson Lotus. I'm not looking for a guild, Dante said flatly. Silas issued a blank check bounty on your head, Lyra countered. You can't fight thousands of members by yourself. Sign with us. Full protection, and a 60-40 raid split, and a massive real-world salary. I've played the guild politics game, Dante replied coldly. You put your trust in leadership, and then the second a supreme artifact drops, someone puts a dagger in your spine. I'm playing solo. Lyra studied his face. her high perception stat picking up his cold focus. "You hold a massive grudge against Silas. This is personal. If you're smart, Lyra, you'll keep Crimson Lotus out of the crossfire," Dante warned. He turned away. "Because wherever Silas goes, I'm going to burn the ground he stands on." Lyra watched him walk away, cool, then immediately opened her guild chat. "Cancel all aggressive operations near the beginner zones. Do not engage Dan under any circumstances. We're going to sit back and watch him dismantle Vanguard's legacy for us." Dante entered a high-end tavern and headed straight toward a private booth. A woman in gray robes was waiting for him, player ID Sarah. She was Seraphina, leader of Astral Vanguard, a massive real-world gaming studio that bought high-end gear with real currency and sold it to the highest bidder. "You're late," Seraphina said, this without looking up from her digital ledger. "I had a Titan to kill," Dante replied, eyes sliding into the booth. Seraphina paused, her eyes widened, as she took in his golden armor. "You're Dan. You actually want to sell to us?" Dante opened a direct trade window and dumped his excess inventory inside. Hundreds of silver tier weapons from the Shadow Stalkers, thousands of raw crafting materials, the Assassin's Bane dagger, and dozens of skill books. Seraphina stared at the scrolling list of loot. It was enough, yes, to equip a small army. "That's an entire guild's worth of progression. 1.2 billion Viridian credits." "Done," Dante said, and confirming the trade. The funds were instantly wired to Dante's untraceable offshore account. Financially secure, Dante could now afford top-tier nutrient drips, maximum security for his physical apartment, and remain logged into the game indefinitely. He was rich, he was geared, and he was completely off the leash. Dante left the Instance Tavern, and the chaotic noise of Outpost 404 washed over him again. He had 1.2 billion credits sitting in an offshore account, but in-game, real-world money meant nothing to NPC vendors. He needed flat numerical advantages to stack on top of his Zenith tier skills. Aura's healing was percentage-based, but its 10-second cooldown was an eternity in heavy combat. He needed flat stat buffs to survive environmental damage and high-tier bosses. Dante walked toward the eastern edge of the Merchant District, stopping in front of a quiet shop called Botanical Remedies. Inside, an NPC clerk was arguing with a player over potion prices. Dante walked past the players and tapped his left index finger against the glass counter. The Band of the Voidwalker gleamed. The clerk's programming hitched. Its dismissive script instantly vanished after recognizing the Titan-tier spatial ring. "My apologies, honored Outworlder," the clerk said, straightening up and ignoring the angry customer. "The items out front are beneath your requirements. The proprietor is accepting private audiences today. This way." He pulled a hidden lever. A heavy oak bookshelf swung open, revealing a stone corridor leading underground. Dante followed it into a subterranean laboratory, filled with glowing cabinets. Sitting behind a mahogany desk, there was a woman in an elegant dark purple dress, all with luminescent violet eyes. NPC, Lady Vespera, level, suppressed. Status, dormant. Dante's intuition stat screamed at him. The physical pressure radiating from her was heavier than the Phantom Chimera Emperor and the Super Divine Corpse combined. "You're making a lot of noise for someone who just logged in," Vespera said, without looking up from her book. "It's a noisy server," Dante replied casually. "I need high-tier consumables." Vespera closed her book, her eyes scanning his sun-forged cuirass and Titan ring. "You don't smell like a beginner. You smell like a dead Titan. If you want the real stock, feel free to browse." She gestured toward a chilled glass display case, lined with frost runes. On a velvet cushion sat a single teardrop-shaped crystal vial, shifting with prismatic light. Item appraised, ethereal nectar. Tier, mythic. Description, grants absolute permanent immunity to all negative status effects. Poisons, stuns, silences, instant death curses. Price, 50,000 gold coins. 50 billion gold. Dante tapped the glass. Did the system add 6 zeros by accident? "Instant death curses are how the system handles anomalies," Vespera replied smoothly. "Drinking that removes you from the execution parameters of the system. I have a pet that grants debuff immunity in an aura, Dante noted. Auras have a fixed radius, Vespera countered, walking toward him. If your pet is banished or separated from you, your immunity disappears. Real power belongs to the body. I don't have 50 billion gold, Dante said flatly. I have a problem that requires a unique solution, Vespera said with a smile. I need 10 sunflare orchids from Embercrag Canyon, 50 miles north. Embercrag Canyon was a mid-game level 25-plus zone, filled with extreme fire damage and aggressive mobs. What do I get? Dante asked. Bring me 10 intact orchids, and I'll give you permanent stat-boosting elixirs, and along with access to my private inventory. Hidden quest triggered, Vespera's reagent. Objective, retrieve 10 sunflare orchids from Embercrag Canyon. Reward, permanent stat-boosting elixirs, private inventory access. Dante accepted the quest. Deal. But I need base health now to soak the environmental fire damage. Vespera pulled 3 heavy iron flasks from her desk and tossed them over. Item appraised. Ironbark draft. Tier, silver. Description. Permanently increases base HP by 1,000 per flask. Limit 3 uses per player. 3,000 extra health for 300 silver, Vespera said. It was a massive bargain for permanent stats. Dante pulled the silver from his infinite inventory and tossed it onto her desk. He downed all 3 flasks in rapid succession, wincing at the gritty bark-like texture. Ironbark draft. Consumed 3. Basic permanently increased by 3,000. Dante opened his character sheet. Name, Dan, level, 19. Class, warrior, Ifstan 100, 900. He was level 19, with nearly 10,000 health points. The average level 20 tank, Messina barely broke 3,000. I'll be back with your orchids, Dante said. Hurry, Vespera warned, without looking up. I can feel the heavy march of hundreds of boots heading north. Silas had mobilized his army, to sweep the map. Let them march, Dante said coldly. Saves me the trouble of hunting them down. He stepped out of the apothecary and headed straight for the northern gates, in toward Embercrag Canyon. The air in Embercrag Canyon didn't just feel hot. It felt heavy. Dante stood at the entrance of the volcanic ravine, while black ash choked the sky. The moment he crossed the threshold, a warning flashed. Zone alert, Embercrag Canyon. Extreme heat detected. Applying searing atmosphere debuff. Effect, take 20 fire damage every second. Standard health regeneration disabled. For a normal player, taking 20 damage every second was a logistical nightmare. It meant constantly burning through the health potions just to stay alive. Dante just smiled. He took 20 damage per second. But his high-grade vitality elixir restored 1% of his maximum HP every 10 seconds. With his HP pushed to 900 by the Ironbark drafts, he recovered 91 health points every 10 seconds, nearly double the damage he was taking. The debuff was a joke. Dante drew the Crimson Edge and walked down the ash-covered slope. He deliberately kicked loose rocks as he moved. He wanted Silas's trackers to find him. 20 minutes later, he found his first quest objective, a bright yellow flower, growing beside a magma vent. Resource identified, Sunflare Orchid. Dante pulled it from the ground and tossed it into his infinite inventory. 1 down, 9 to go. Crunching gravel echoed 40 feet above him. Dante's 100 intuition stat instantly pinpointed 3 scouts, hiding behind a boulder. You guys have terrible stealth mechanics, Dante called up casually. Do me a favor, ping your boss. Tell him where I am. A skinny scout in dark leather peeked over the rock, holding a communication crystal. They're already coming. The enforcers are in the canyon. The enforcers were Vanguard's Legacy's elite PvP hit squad, paid real-world salaries by Silas, and to slaughter rival guilds. Dante didn't run. He walked into the wide center of the canyon floor, drove the Crimson Edge into the stone, and waited. 10 minutes later, the ground began vibrating beneath synchronized armored boots. 300 black and gold players poured into the canyon. They spread across the ridges, forming a massive phalanx across the canyon floor. 50 tower shield tanks, 100 melee DPS, and a massive backline of casters and archers. To counter the 20 damage per second environmental heat, Syndicate healers continuously pulsed AoE healing spells. keeping the army alive. The sea of players parted. A man in functional dark gray iron armor stepped forward. Player ID Malric. Malric was the head of the Syndicate's real-world enforcer division, a calm, tactical contractor. Dan, Malric said calmly, I care about closing open contracts. Right now, you're an open contract. 300 players to close one contract? Dante asked. It's called overwhelming force, Malric replied. I know your stats. I know you have a Zenith tier Firebird skill, a mobility skill, BAM, and a healing pet. Malric pulled out a black scroll, bound with silver chains. Item identified, Chains of the Warden. Tier, Divine. Type, single target suppression. A Divine tier item, bought from a black market data broker for millions. This scroll bypasses all status immunities, including your pet's aura, Malric said coldly. It locks a single target in absolute stasis for 10 seconds. In 10 seconds, 300 players will dump every attack into your head. You can't dodge, you can't parry, and you can't heal. Dante pulled the crimson edge from the rock, looking completely bored. Good plan, Malric. Flawless plan, Malric corrected. Just one problem. Dante gestured toward the canyon. You brought 300 people into an active volcano. A rhythmic thudding shook the earth. The ash clouds were suddenly sucked upward into a massive thermal current. The environmental debuff spiked from 20 damage per second to 50. The healers panicked, and as health bars began dropping rapidly. What did you do? Malric snapped. Nothing, Dante said with a smile. You brought a concentrated group of high-level players into a mid-game boss zone. The system balances threats. A geyser of liquid magma erupted, directly behind the Syndicate's backline. A dozen archers were incinerated instantly. Then, something stepped out of the lava, a 30-foot monster made entirely of flowing magma, holding a molten warhammer. Zone boss spawn, Inferno Behemoth. Tier Gold, level 50, HP 150,000. The entire 300-man army froze, staring at the level 50 gold boss. Dante looked at Malric. You were saying something about a flawless plan? The ground collapsed beneath the backline of Vanguard's legacy, as a geyser of liquid fire erupted 200 feet into the sky. The system immediately updated its threat assessment. Zone boss spawn, Inferno Behemoth. Tier Gold, level 5. HP 150,000. Despite being only level 5, its gold tier classification gave it the stats of a level 50 raid boss. The behemoth dragged its molten warhammer across the ground, melting volcanic rock into slag. Tanks, pivot and hold the line, Malric shouted, abandoning his monologue. Healers, focus on the front line. Dante didn't stay around. With Malric distracted, he activated Blink Step once, twice, 3 times. Dante warped rapidly up the canyon wall, then pulled himself onto a high cliff overlooking the battlefield. He sat near the edge, letting his legs hang over the 200-foot drop. Below him, the Syndicate struggled to hold back the behemoth, but the regional alerts had already drawn thousands of independent players into Embercrag Canyon, desperate for a gold-tier drop. The swarm ignored tactics completely. They surged into the canyon, attacking both the boss and Malric's men. Zerg rush, Dante muttered. The Inferno Behemoth raised its warhammer, then slammed it into the ground. A massive ring of jagged obsidian spikes erupted outward. More than 80 independent players were instantly impaled, their bodies turning to ash. Aura floated out of her pet space, letting out a soft chime as she looked down at the slaughter. It's a massacre, Dante said, watching indifferently while eating an apple. Months ago, and he would have jumped down to save them. But Silas had cured him of his hero complex. Dante owed no one on this server. Let them fight, Dante said flatly. Below, the boss's HP dropped beneath 70%. The behemoth plunged its hammer into the magma, then grabbed its white-hot visor. It tore its own face open. Fall back, Malric yelled, inactivating a dash skill to escape. The behemoth unleashed a massive 180-degree cone of superheated magma. The attack incinerated the Syndicate's shield wall and instantly deleted more than 300 independent players. When the flames finally cleared, the canyon floor had become a sea of molten fire. Only a dozen Syndicate members remained, Malruk stood among them, scorched and sitting at 10% health. Dante checked the boss's status. Inferno Behemoth HP 85,000, 150,000. Status exhausted. Attack speed reduced by 30% for 60 seconds. The Zerg Rush had done its job. It had chipped away at the boss and forced it into its cooldown phase. Dante stood up on the cliff and brushed the ash from his hands. "Show's over," Dante said softly, reaching into his infinite inventory. Dante stood on the cliff, looking down at the devastated canyon floor. The Inferno Behemoth was cooling down, with 85,000 HP remaining. Before dropping in, Dante checked his stats. Name, Dan, level 19, class, warrior, HP 9-100, stamina 1-200, mana 450, attack power 1-50, physical defense 2800, magical defense 1050. To burn through 85,000 HP quickly, Dante pulled a rogue skill book from his infinite inventory. Mirror Stance. Skill learned, Mirror Stance, Novice. Dante activated the skill, triggering his talent. Talent activated, 10,000x multiplier. Mirror Stance reached Zenith tier. Skill evolution triggered. Mirror Stance evolved into Fractured Reality. Fractured Reality, Zenith. Summons 12 autonomous physical clones. Clones inherit 100% of base attack power, perfectly mirror physical strikes, and are immune to all damage for 10 seconds. Cooldown, 15 seconds. Dante stepped off the cliff, free-falling 200 feet, 50 feet above the canyon floor, as he activated Blink Step. Dante landed safely, in a pool of magma directly behind the boss. Environmental damage, 100 HP. He activated Fractured Reality. Space shattered around him, and as 12 identical black and red clones materialized around the 30-foot behemoth. Dante lunged forward, and swinging the crimson edge at the boss's knee. The 12 clones mirrored him perfectly. 13 blades struck at once. Down to 50. A single swing dealt nearly 25,000 physical damage, buckling the behemoth's massive leg. The surrounding magma continued burning Dante, dropping his HP to 6,000. But Aura chimed beside his shoulder. Resurgence wave applied. 40-50 HP restored. Back to full. Dante unleashed a flurry of basic attacks. While all 12 clones mirrored every slash, the behemoth swung a massive fist at Dante, dealing 3,500 damage through his sun-forged cuirass. Aura pulsed again, instantly restoring him to full health. Malres watched from cover, completely stunned. He's out-healing the magma. He's just standing in it. The boss's HP melted away. His Inferno Behemoth, HP 40,000, 150,000. Inferno Behemoth, HP 15,000, 150,000. The behemoth raised its arms, is preparing a self-destruct explosion. The clones faded. Dante didn't need them anymore. He gripped the crimson edge with both hands, rearm, and activated Abyssal Cleave. The spatial fracture sliced cleanly through the boss's head and spine, canceling the self-destruct. The Inferno Behemoth split in half, then shattered into millions of golden polygons. Target eliminated. Inferno Behemoth. Level up, level up, level up. Dante's level surged, straight to 22. Ding. Server-wide announcement. The Gold Tier Zone boss, Inferno Behemoth, has been slain. First kill secured by player, Dan. Dante sheathed his sword, then turned toward the wall where Malrice was hiding. "Hey, Malric!" Dante called out. "You still have that suppression scroll?" Dante stood in the center of the cooling magma, completely unbothered by the liquid fire lapping at his boots. The Inferno Behemoth was gone, leaving behind a massive black iron gold tier boss chest. Dante waded through the lava. The sun-forged cuirass mitigated the heat damage. As he kicked open the heavy latch, he pulled out the first item, a two-handed wooden staff, with a burning ember crystal at its tip. The item appraised, Staff of Cinders, tier gold, type two-handed magic weapon, stats, plus 450 magical attack, plus 200 mana. Passive, fire spells apply a 10-second stacking burn, dealing 5% max HP as true damage. It was a powerful mage weapon, but completely useless for a warrior build. Dante tossed it straight into the infinite inventory of the Band of the Void Walker. The second item was a pair of silver-plated fire-resistant greaves. Item appraised, Ashwalker treads. Tier, silver. Stats, +50 physical defense, +50 movement speed. Passive, immunity to terrain-based movement penalties. Mud, snow, ash. Dante equipped them immediately. They digitized into silver light around his calves, removing the sluggishness of walking through magma. Finally, he pulled out a red skill book. Flame Dash, a basic novice tier mobility skill. Dante absorbed it, saving its zenith evolution for when he needed it. He opened a private chat with Serafina. Dan, you still online? Sarah, always. What did you do this time? Dan, cleared a gold boss. Staff of Cinders, gold tier, massive magical scaling, percentage burn. Sarah, how do you already have gold loot? 1.2 billion credits wasn't enough? Dan, do you want it or not? Sarah, give me 5 minutes to move funds. My buyer in the Celestial Kingdom will pay top dollar. Dante closed the interface. Suddenly, the ground began vibrating violently again. Not from a boss, from the heavy march of hundreds of armored boots. Malric stepped out from behind his cover, a cold, arrogant smile on his face. You should have used your teleport skill to run while you had the chance, Malric called out. Dante looked up. The ridges surrounding the canyon floor were completely packed. 300 players wearing black and gold Vanguard's legacy armbands formed a full ring around him. Silas had emptied his entire guild roster to trap Dante. Standing beside Malric was Vargas, back in basic linen clothes, holding a cheap iron dagger and looking terrified. Well, Dante laughed. Look who logged back in. Did Silas threaten to break your legs in the real world? If you didn't join the firing squad, Vargas? Vargas flushed red. Shut up. We have you surrounded. There's nowhere to teleport. You're standing in a hazard zone with 1 life left, Vargas, Dante said calmly. If you die again, your capsule fries your brain. Malric stepped in front of the trembling rogue. We watched the whole fight, Dan, he said coldly. You rely on that zenith tier spatial fracture. Your healing pet has a cooldown, and those 12 clones disappeared after 10 seconds. You're out of stamina, Bruenum, surrounded by 300 fresh players with full mana. Malric drew his steel broadsword. We aren't going to kill you quickly. Pain receptors are at 100%. We're going to chain stun you, burn you, and break every bone in your body until you tell us how you evolved your skills to zenith tier. Then you'll hand over the boss loot and give Vargas back the blood-weeping sword. Dante looked past Malric, toward Vargas. Then he lowered the crimson edge. You talk about numbers and tactics, but you fundamentally misunderstand the game we're playing right now, Dante said softly. Enlighten me, Malric sneered. You think this is a raid, Dante said, stepping forward as he equipped the Flame Dash skill book. You think you're the boss, and I'm trapped in your arena. A cold, dangerous smile spread across Dante's face. You brought 300 people to corner me, but all you really did was trap 300 people in a canyon with me. Malric's eyes narrowed, unease flashing across his face. Kill him! Now! Up on the ridges, 300 players pulled their bowstrings tight. Magic circles flared to life in the hands of the casters. The dark sky lit up, in a brilliant array of colors. Dante didn't raise his shield. He simply stared at Malric. Let's see if that suppression scroll of yours actually works,